Today I'm going to talk to you about the power of words. I'm a retired psychology professor, and I took the scientific method and the critical thinking approach to the power of words and the connection to God. Because as I did more digging, I realized that God created psychology and psychology took God out. We can all agree that words are very important. They form your identity. Words that you say to yourself, to others, also affect your self-concept. They form other people's identity and their self-concept. Negative and positive words, like calling a child or yourself dumb, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy to the point where somebody or the child might say, I can't do that because I'm dumb. So be very careful when you use your words. Words are positive and negative attitudes. They affect our behavior or how we act. In psychology, I would ask my students, do they expect to get an A? And what behavior they're going to need to get an A. Come to class, study, take notes. And chances are they're going to get somewhere around the A. So speak what you expect. Expect an A, act like an A. If you expect to be prosperous, what career do you want? Think about that career. What do you need to do to get to that? Imagine yourself doing that career. It affects our emotions, how we feel. If somebody says something nice to you, you feel happy. Or if they say something mean to you, you feel sad. It makes us feel peaceful or angry. It also affects our physical health. That if you say to a person, you don't look so good, are you feeling sick? Now, the person might not be feeling bad at all. But because you said, you don't look good, you look sick, all of a sudden they're going to start thinking that they're sick. So there have been studies where they said positive words to plants and those plants thrived, and they said negative words to plants and those plants died. And they've done this with rice and other materials and same results. So back to words. Words affect our circumstances. They direct our path. They get you the job that you want, or you put your foot in your mouth and you don't get the job that you want. Saying yes to a wedding proposal. It affects and directs our lives. It also influences. We can convince ourselves, I can do this, or we can convince others. For example, if you want to go see a certain movie, be the first one to speak up, to say you want to see this movie. And chances are the rest of the group will go along with it. It also motivates yourself and others, or it can cause you not to become motivated or others to be not motivated, like I can't do this, or you can't do this, or you're not capable. So words affect how you and others act, they feel, and it also affects your health. What began this process for me was I did a survey of my students after 9/11, asked them what coping technique they were going to use, and they told me the majority of the answer was they were going to give it to God. And I realized that gave them a sense of control when they had no control. The only control they had was their ability to pray, and it gave them a sense of peace, which I also discussed in other presentations. So my study research began with what source do I use? If we're going to give it to God, what's the source? Well, considered a couple different sources, landed on the King James Version because it is the most reliable and valid source. I looked into AI and found that they had changed stories and they omitted passages. Well, just very briefly, they changed the story of the prostitute, where the prostitute was, Jesus said, go and sin no more, but the story was changed that Jesus killed him. Well, that changes the whole point of the story. And the moral of the story is to forgive. They omitted passages on the secrets to success. Joshua 1:5-9 says that the secret to success is to observe, meditate, and do accordance what is written in the book of law, and you will be prosperous, deal wisely, have good success. So basically, in a nutshell, again, these are like the 10 commandments. You reap what you sow. If you put out their negativity, negativity will come back. But we say this in psychology as well. So why did they leave it out was my big question. What are they trying to hide? It seems to me this is the important piece that you want to know that affects all of us. So be careful of your source. And I was careful of what source I used as well. So as I proceed, I am just paraphrasing the Bible. Please understand that I'm not a theologist nor a preacher, and I'm only giving you a few passages, and there are many passages, but in light of time, I'm only giving you a few. So where in the Bible are these concepts of psychologies and that I've discussed and the power of words? Well, in the Bible, it says words are a life-giving force or a destructive force. We say this in psychology too. Already discussed this. Matthew chapter 12, verse 37, by your words are you justified and acquitted or condemned and sentenced. That's true all the time. Have you ever said something that just had negative repercussions and it snowballed on you? Isaiah 55, verse 11, words that come out of your mouth do not go out into a void, but they shall have an effect and be accomplished and prosper, good or bad. They just don't go out into the atmosphere and have no effect at all. So you've got to be careful what you say. You reap what you sow. Negativity will come back to you. Words as a weapon. I did another presentation on that. Basically, the reap and sow thing, you could think of that as if you give to the poor and the needy, it'll come back to you as a reward, increased money, increased favor. And remember that it's not having money that is evil. It's the love of money that's evil and not doing anything with it to help others. Matthew 15, verse 11 and 18 says that Jesus says it's not what goes in your mouth that defiles you, but what comes out of your mouth that defiles you. We know this in psychology as well. Your mouth gets you into trouble. It also reflects on your personality. Have you ever said something that was mean and it made you really look bad? Also in psychology, it again brings back that negativity. If you're in a bad mood, it causes others to be in a bad mood. It affects your behavior, your words and mood. It affects then their behavior, their words, and their mood. Unconsciously, we say things that are negative and we don't even realize we're saying it. I can't do it. My brain is fried. I'm sick and tired. I'm so broke. I'm afraid. I can't do it. Understand that fear is the opposite of peace. And we want to speak peace in our lives and not fear in our lives. And that, again, is another presentation. Have you ever had this happen to you? You say to somebody, oh, your car's not going to start. It's a piece of junk. And the person says, oh, don't say that now. It's really not going to start. Where did this concept come from? We put negativity out into the atmosphere. Who do we think is going to respond to that? The only thing I came up was either God or Satan. And I know I prefer God to respond to that. So we say things like, oh, God forbid, to hopefully negate that statement. So in psychology, we don't have the psychic ability to make your car work or not. So where did this concept originate from? The Bible says negativity gives evil access. It's not your intent. You don't mean to put evil out there. You don't mean to make yourself sick and tired, but apparently it gives evil access. You're putting it out there. And passages that I've already talked about, because your mouth is what defiles you, condemns you. Words do not go out into a void. They accomplish what they purpose. So I've already discussed that. In psychology, some of what we say could be a self-fulfilling prophecy. If the bride says, I'm going to trip down the aisle on my wedding day, well, of course she's going to trip because it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Other times, it's not a self-fulfilling prophecy. I've already discussed the plant with the positive words thrives and negative words it dies. The plant did not commit suicide. It did not cause its own death. An example, many, many examples out there, and I'm just going to pick one, where a person had a tumor and they were prayed over, they prayed themselves, they go back to the doctor, tumor's gone or it's shrunk, and the doctor said, what did you do? And the person says, I didn't do anything. I just had people pray over me, and I prayed, and it worked. Tumor shrunk. Well, in psychology, we have something known as biofeedback training, where you are trained to decrease your blood pressure, your body temperature, your heart rate, but there's nothing in psychology that says or proves or says you have the power to shrink a tumor. So again, looking back at the Bible and healing, and I did that in another presentation. So back to, where is control, power, and authority? Well, in Proverbs 18, verse 21, life and death is in the power of the tongue. If you can control your tongue, you'll be able to control your entire being. In psychology, we talked about this. Words have an effect. James chapter 3, verse 3 through 10, your tongue is like a rudder of a ship. That's true in psychology. Have you ever said something and it just starts heading down the path and you're just like, just shut up? But, like you put your foot in your mouth. But it steers that path. It steers the next events or the conversation. Psalms 141, verse 3, no man can tame the tongue, so you need God's help to put a guard over your mouth. Don't we say this? Do you bite your tongue? You're saying things like, God, help me bite my tongue. Please don't make me say something because I want to say something so badly. So we ask for God's help. In the Bible, where is power and authority in the Bible? In John 1:12, to as many as did receive and welcome Jesus, he gives the authority, which is the power, the right, to become the children of God. That is, to those who believe, trust in, adhere to, and rely on his name. In Deuteronomy 30:19, I set before you life and death, blessings and cursings. Therefore choose life, so you and your descendants may live. Notice the word here is choice. And I also talked about this in my other presentations. You have a choice. God's giving you a choice. Understand that God gave us free will, and he will never override your free will. Sometimes you wish that he did, but he's not going to do it. And God does not make bad things happen. It's not God's fault. It's our fault. It's our negativity and the sequence of events that envelop that. So we believe that in psychology as well. James 1, verses 13 through 15. God does not tempt, test, or try. So it's not God's fault that things are happening that you're not happy with in your life. In psychology, you have the authority, the power, the control. I did this in other presentations as well. But you only have that power and authority and control up to a point. And then what do? Well, back to that survey, we give it to God. God's got our back. And I would come across passages in the Bible where it said, fear the Lord. And I thought, well, that doesn't make sense. How could you fear something you're supposed to love and you're supposed to come to for help? Well, finally realized that it meant be afraid that he doesn't have your back. Be afraid that he's not going to help you. So this also gives us a sense of peace. As children, we have our parents to help us and to have our backs. As adults, who do we have? So this gives us a sense of peace, knowing that we've got God to help us. So we go back to the Bible. The Bible is still relevant today. I'm finding so many concepts in psychology that are in the Bible that were taken out. And I'll do other presentations on this as well. Also, getting back to power, authority, and control, Jesus' work on the cross, this new covenant, this new agreement that we made, gave us back our authority, our power, control over our health, our finances, prosperity, peace, joy. He redeemed us from the curse, from the lack that Adam gave away in the garden to Satan. So all we need to do is accept this. So how powerful are words? Well, I want to start off with first the Big Bang theory. And if you ask the scientists, how did the world come about, they will tell you that what their theory is of this Big Bang. And if they're pressed, well, where did that happen? How did that happen? How did that come about? And eventually they're like, well, we don't know. Poof. And I'm thinking, well, I'm from the scientific method. Poof's not an answer. Where is there an answer? Where does it tell us how this world began, the Big Bang? Well, in Genesis 1, it said that God used words to create light, earth, water, vegetation, creatures. Everything came into existence because God spoke words. Words create. We know the power of words, just discussed it with you. Jesus also used words to heal the blind, the deaf, people that were paralyzed or had leprosy, even raised people from the dead. A lot of accounts in Matthew 9 and Mark and Luke and John. You can look those up. So Jesus is even referred to as the Word. So Jesus is the Word. John 1. So throughout the Bible, there are references to words for healing, physical, mental healing. They're used as weapons to fight off evil. Words about control, to gain power and authority, to gain prosperity, be successful, have peace and joy, increase your finances, much of which I've discussed in other presentations. So, in conclusion, Proverbs 24:10, the Bible never promises you're not going to face adversaries, but it does promise strength, grace, unmerited favor to overcome it. John 16, verse 33 says, you will have tribulations, trials, distress, frustrations, but take courage, be confident. Be at peace, be undaunted, for God has deprived the world of the power to harm you, and God has conquered it for you. He's got your back. Understand that you have to have a relationship with God. Like any other relationship, you're not just going to go up to somebody and says, God, I need money. You're not going to go up to a stranger and say, I need money. You have to have a relationship with God. And with any relationship, again, psychology, relationships that have a strong foundation will overcome and handle problems better than those that have a weak foundation. So you need to have a relationship with God. In John 1:12, 3 John verse 2, Romans 10 verses 8 through 11, have faith that comes from hearing the word and speaking the word out loud. When you have faith and believe it, you can reach out and take it, take your healing, take your authority, your power, your finances, be prosperous. So, again, Jesus did all this work on the cross for us. We're not going to wait for him to come to do it again. He's not going to come back and die for us all over again. You need to accept what he did and that he's there for you because it's unmerited favor. And otherwise, his suffering and his death was in vain. So use your words wisely. Now, the other thing I found out through all of this is Satan doesn't want you to know all of this because now you have power over him and his minions. So you are more powerful because God's got your back. So the other thing I want to leave you off with is Psalm 91. It's a protection prayer, a healing prayer, should be said every day. Back in World War I, the soldiers were instructed to say this prayer every day. The 91st Brigade, they were in 3 of the bloodiest battles with no combat casualties, while the other units had 90% casualty. It's a fact. It's a history. You would ask these soldiers, they'll tell you it was the Psalm 91, their protection prayer. It was something higher than themselves because it wasn't a self-fulfilling prophecy. You've got bullets involved. So there's a high probability of causation. I hope this gives you a place to start your journey. I've provided links. I do recommend starting with Elijah Streams. Steve Schultz has many people on that maybe you'll resonate with someone that'll start your journey. And I'm very discerning on who I put up under these links. I use that scientific method and take it very seriously. And so, God bless.